Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Virgo and your moon in Taurus. So we're talking about double earth. The sun is Mercury ruled and is a mutable sign. And then you have the fixed earth that is ruled by Venus. So the moon, by the way, is exalted in Taurus. And yet the sun sign is going to be a big focus because that is where you're shining your light on the world. When a person is a sun in Virgo, one of their big aims in life is doing things that are useful. So even when it comes to your hobbies, you might want to do things that you feel like are productive. That might be a big word for you. Is it productive? And so something that doesn't seem to have any kind of positive, I shouldn't say positive outcome, but it doesn't add up to anything, you might deem frivolous, and you might think, I'm not going to do that at all. But for instance, maybe your hobby has to do with working out or something that some other person might consider a chore, or something that they do just kind of like unwillingly, but they feel like they have to do it. I would say for Virgo, this could involve, like I'm talking about in your free time, doing something like gardening, or learning how to grow vegetables in your backyard, so that's also the earthy quality. Maybe herbalism, learning how to detect the wild, like herbs that are growing in your forest preserves or what have you. Or mushrooming, whatever they call it. Yeah. Where you're finding and identifying wild mushrooms. Virgo loves to classify things, so that would be perfect. Or those, like I said, I think of Virgo as the herbalist. So anything along those lines, if that's a hobby of yours, or even yoga, something that it can benefit you physically and spiritually and yet still be a hobby. And you have a great attention to detail. You have a great work ethic, and you tend to be very disciplined and moderate. Although I know some Virgo people that can be quite into their substances. As a matter of fact, I know someone who's a Virgo, and they said to me, I never take the same thing 2 days in a row. So that's their rule, to staying above the fray when it comes to any kind of use of mind-altering substances. But in general, I think a lot of Virgo people prefer a simple life. They're not very materialistic compared to the moon sign. Now remember, I have to get to the moon sign, so that might cancel that out. And they just seem to be content almost with a life of the mind. You may be well read, you might be a teacher even, but you definitely have, or a writer, but you can be the kind of person who prefers, like I was going to say too, pastimes like book clubs and going to lectures and stuff like that. That might be something that you find very fulfilling to do in your off hours. So it involves learning because your sun sign is ruled by Mercury. And of course, so is Gemini, ruled by Mercury. But Gemini tends to love trivia, just picking up information as it comes to them and not really disseminating its value. Virgo really does like to gather information that has a practical purpose, applicable purpose, rather than just random tidbits of information. I have the moon in Virgo, and as a sun in Sagittarius, I favor spiritual information and practices that really benefit people here and now, not, when we go back on the mothership and, with the Galactic Federation somewhere, but right here and right now. So, I think that you are like that. And that's one of the things, too, that I want to really bring up here is that a double earth sign, sun and moon, can have a tendency to be very skeptical about things that are not right under their nose. And when I read a lot of comments online, they say, show me the proof, of God or whatever, or even some so-called conspiracy theory. The truth is that sometimes we can't do that for whatever reason, but we feel that we align with that piece of information, and we really feel it in our bones, and we know it's the truth. A person that's a double earth sign, they may be very skeptical about intuition and that kind of thing. And it's like you have to show the receipts for them to believe that something is really true. And while I certainly don't recommend just taking people's word for things and just being gullible or anything like that, by the same token, not to be so skeptical that you question yourself out of a spiritual life, that you just are, becoming too earthbound, and that you just see things from that perspective, because it can be a very limiting perspective, and it can really make it hard for you to even get on a spiritual path, because you find that you're always poking holes in these theories. And that's why I do favor something that can also benefit us in the 3D, reality that exists before us. And so anything in your day-to-day life, and that's why I think yoga is, I'm talking about Hatha yoga, is so popular, because it's something that you can, if you do it regularly, you will very likely see an improvement in your flexibility, in your health, and in your emotional balance. And so it's not something that's pie in the sky. And there's a tangibility factor there. And yet it's a spiritual practice at the same time. So it's win-win. So that might be something that you gravitate towards, because it does have that physical component. Versus sitting meditation where you're not doing anything, You might like that connection to your body that Hatha yoga provides. In terms of professions, like I said, people who are Virgos can be the school I was going to say the school marm, but the school teacher. And the thing with the moon, I want to talk about the moon in Taurus, because this is an important component of that. Taurus, to me, is a creature of the senses. So there's a very sensual influence from Venus that renders Taurus very languid, very much in love with the idea of just chilling and, being that, like those paintings of Venus all sprawled out and naked or half naked and, eating grapes or something like that, and voluptuous figure and that kind of thing. And actually, you can see the difference between Taurus and Virgo. Taurus tends to have like a curvy feminine figure, and Virgo women tend to be kind of boyish in their frame. They might be very skinny. They might not have pronounced hips. They might be very have a small bust instead of being big breasted and that kind of thing. And that's definitely not true of all Virgos. I think Raquel Welch is a Virgo, and she certainly isn't any of those things. But in general, and Sophia Loren too. It's funny that these sex symbols are Virgos, because Virgo is associated with this sense of purity and almost the virginal quality rather than that lusty, hot mama. But in any case, speaking of which, I do think that somebody that is a double earth sign like this can be very earthy in their sexual desires. And that can be good because it's not too far out. It's just very down to earth, but just really believing that that's important in their life. One of the things I was going to say in terms of your physical appearance is look at the rising sign, because that can give more information about the body type and things like that. What else? Well, the thing that I was a little bit conflicted about is Virgo does love to learn and maybe to share what they've learned. But Taurus as the moon sign is, I think of Taurus in general as not like that, is not into the cerebral. That's why I mentioned the sensual. Taurus is really, because of the Venus connection, can be artistic, and that is, I think, especially musical, may have a good musical voice. There are certainly famous singers who have the moon in Taurus, namely Jim Morrison, Mick Jagger. These are two of them. And I'm not saying, neither one of them had they were not operatic voices. And they were both in the realm of rock and roll, but they were both fire signs, so that makes sense, because rock and roll to me is very fire sign like. Virgo, if a Virgo person is a musician, a singer, or a musician, or both, they will tend to be very perfectionistic. So their technique is on point, and certainly Taurus can also be very into their habits, and that can include keeping their voice. I saw Judy Collins like 10 years ago, and I think then she was in her 70, and the woman had the most amazing pristine voice. Even as a senior citizen, she was just, and I think she even talked about that she still does her vocal exercises, and she is a Taurus, a sun in Taurus, I believe. So sun or moon in Taurus person can be very regimented, and so can Virgo, definitely, but for different reasons. For Taurus, it's because it's a fixed sign, and fixed signs tend to like routines. For Virgo rules the sixth house of routines. This can make you this combination can make you very financially set. I'm not saying, you can't just look at this and just like automatically say that. But I feel like you have an inherent knowledge of the monetary system. Certainly, Taurus rules the second house of earned income, and being in the moon position, this is intuitive, and the person has just an instinctual ability to know how to invest, know how to, what to buy and how to save. All of these things can come quite easily to you. I think with the moon in Taurus, the big thing you have to watch for is retail therapy, that you may be very, relatively frugal, but when you have some kind of emotional upset, you want to buy something. And Taurus likes their creature comforts for sure. In terms of love, you have a very down-to-earth way of perceiving, who is best for you. So unless you have some imbalances in your chart, and it's hard to talk about like right now, I'll just give an example. Like if you have Neptune in the 5th house, or you have a square between Venus and Neptune, you may have a tendency to keep picking the wrong partners. And as a result, this can lead to maybe not having grounded relationships, and maybe you are kind of the adult in the room, and you pick partners. Like for instance, if you just find that you find fire signs really hot, and maybe your Venus and or Mars is in Leo as a sun sign in Virgo, you may find that you're the one who is much more mature in many ways, organized and that kind of thing. And it can be a little bit irritating to you after a while, because you feel like you have to do everything. And of course, that might not even be true. You might be kind of exaggerating it, because you feel like you are much more responsible or what have you, and that you're the adult in the room. But in general, I think that you have such a practical nature that you will tend to view your love interest in that way. The Virgo isn't a very romantic sign, but Taurus is, and it is in the moon position, so it's the emotional nature. But Taurus is also very possessive. The second house rules earned income, Taurus's domain, as well as your possessions. And that can be where you start to view everyone as your possession, including your significant other. And you might get very hot under the collar if this person's talking to somebody at a party and you think they're getting too chummy, and you want to let that other person know, this is my man or my lady. And so you do have to watch that tendency, because it can be, not very enlightened, and, you don't own anybody. Even if you're married to your partner, you don't have ownership of somebody. And also, the best way to really keep somebody is to give them a long leash, and to be secure within yourself, and to know that you're irreplaceable, and that you are not dependent on anyone. And if they cheat, then you can always find somebody else and have that really strong self-esteem and really mean it, you know. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say. I think that I pretty well covered it for now, and I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.